guys, welcome back to the homestead. So this time of year, as we know, a lot of stores and butchers and stuff put corned beef on sale. So I usually like to take advantage of the sale. I mean, it's not like corned beef isn't ridiculously expensive, but well, in my area anyway. But for the most part, it usually is anywhere between $5 to $6 a pound. But this time of year, they drop it down to $3.99 a pound. So I like to stock up. Of course, I've got a couple in the freezer for later in the year, but then of course also I like to can some, so have easy breakfast, lunches, dinner, all of that. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to put together my corned beef hash recipe. Now, there's a couple ways you can do this. If you don't like onions, you can leave the onions out. If you don't want to do the potatoes, you can leave the potatoes out and just can the corned beef and then add your stuff back in later how you wanted to. But for me, for this one personally, I like to have this one on the shelf so I can take it, throw it in the pan, heat it up, and then fry 2 eggs, put on top, easy breakfast, right? So what we're going to do now is I've done a little pre-work. So I have 2 of the corned beef already cubed up, and these are probably about inch, a little over inch cubes. You can make them any size that you want, but I like smaller because, again, I can shred it right when it comes time to cook it. And then what you do is you take the seasoning pack. So you're going to take your corned beef out. You're going to cut any large hunks of fat out because you don't want to can the fat. It can make it, I mean, I wouldn't get too ridiculous about it. There is still some fat in here, but if you've got large pieces like the one today, I had a piece of fat in it about that big, and sometimes it has that rim around the edge too. I would take that off, just kind of filleting it off. And then you're going to take the seasoning packets that come with it, unless you make your own. I make my own, and I can put that below for you guys if you don't want to use what comes, or you just, buy a cut of meat and you want to corned beef it. And so what I have done is I've taken and I've cubed it, and then I took the seasoning and I put over it and I stuck it in my fridge for a couple hours, right? You're just kind of letting everything marinate. It's a good time to kind of get your jars prepped out, find all your canning supplies, because if yours are like mine, they go missing. Peel and cut your potatoes. These were in water. I just drained them so they wouldn't turn brown. Now, I personally, when I do mine, I put my potatoes and onions on the bottom. And this is because usually the juice that the meat makes will go to the bottom, and the potatoes will absorb a lot of the salt that's in the meat. I do add water to this recipe. Now, I know there's some rebel canning ideas out there where they don't add the water to it. Again, that's your own personal preference on it. I've always made mine with water, and then when I open it up, I drain the water out, and then I put it into the frying pan or however I'm going to cook it and go from there. Just because the potatoes are down there, and I want to make sure that there is moisture between those potatoes, and you don't necessarily always know how much moisture, right, or how much broth or anything that your meats are going to make. For me, when I'm doing veggies with it, I always add hot water on top. So all we're going to do, and like I said, I have with clean hands, clean jars, warm jars, we're just going to take and put, a small amount of potatoes and onions on the bottom. And this can be your preference. Again, if you wanted to throw carrots in here and do it almost like a corned beef stew, you could. I actually leave the carrots out because of the way I use this for breakfast in the morning. I don't really want carrots in the morning. It's a preference thing, I'm sure, but we're just going to fill these up. And these are kind of nice too if you make your, well, you can buy them too, but when you make your own tortillas and stuff, you can make corned beef tacos. Because by the time you're done, it has that pulled meat consistency to it. When you take it out of the jar, it shreds really nicely. Because corned beef, if you cook it right, it'll fall apart anyway on you. Which a lot of people complain that corned beef can be too salty. I don't add any salt back to this because I'm so salt sensitive as it is when it comes to corned beef. So I just don't add any to it. Now here's the thing. If you want more salt to it, add more salt to it. Add whatever spices you want to it. But the thing that I like about putting the potatoes in the bottom, the potatoes will actually suck up all your salt. So you don't end up with that pucker mouth sensation that you sometimes get with corned beef where it just tastes too salty. And it really comes down to your amount of water that you add to it. So like if you're cooking corned beef just to have for dinner and you're like, this always turns out too salty, it's probably because you don't have enough water with it if you're cooking it in your roaster to pull that brine out. Now if you like it extra salty, then you probably like it exactly how it is. Now all I'm going to do now is take my meats and squish them down on top. And again, I like my meat at the top because again, then, you know, the juices kind of run down into the potatoes. And my meat, which is already kind of salty, isn't sitting there in salt water. So we're just going to fill all these up. And I've got my pot of boiling water behind me on the stove. Just trying to give you guys a better setup because you could see what I was doing. Like I said, these were 2 of the corned beef. You can always add more potatoes or anything like that you want to them. But you want to make sure you leave yourself about 1.5 inches headspace on this one. Probably close, maybe an inch. An inch should work. So I'm going to get the rest of these jarred up, and then we'll come back and add the water to them. Okay, guys, so I got it all jarred up. I actually had to cut some more potatoes. So now what I'm going to do, and again, my jars are still warm, so we're just going to take and pour our boiling water over the top of our meats. And you'll see, sorry, that it already starts to kind of turn your meat brown because the water's warm. That's okay. Make sure when you're pouring it in to be careful because of the air pockets. It can bubble back at you, so you don't want to burn your fingers. If you wanted to and you preferred to put a broth over this, you could. But if you were going to do that, I would do a broth that I probably made that didn't have salt in it, because there's a lot of salt in this already. So now we're going to take our knife, get our air bubbles out. Some of your potatoes float to the top. It's okay. Once you get it all adjusted, you can start to move things around. Because as they settle in, you might find you have more space in one jar than another. So just kind of move it all around. But you want to make sure that your meat and potatoes are covered. Unless you're rebel canning, and then, well, you just hope you make enough broth to get those potatoes done. And you'll see there's a lot of air pockets because this is all kind of chunky. So there's a lot of movement. And we're going to have to add more water. This is an easy lunch. Especially if you've got some of those biscuits made. You can throw some biscuits in. Bake your biscuits. Cut them open. Cook up your hash. Throw some eggs on top of it. Easy. Now I'm just making sure everybody's covered. Just go around, push everybody back down, making sure no air bubbles got back in from what we just added. Sometimes it feels like it's overkill, but better be safe than sorry. That one just keeps absorbing all the water. I have to add some more to that one. Must have put a sponge in the bottom of that one. And I've already got my canner warm behind me, not lava, but warm. We're just going to clean our tops off so we know we get a good seal. When I first started canning, I did a whole batch of green beans. I was just too busy running my mouth and multitasking and probably telling my children to go do something back then, but totally forgot to wipe the rims. That was a day we had to reprocess a lot of green beans because, well, they pretty much did not stick. Your fingers get tough when you can play with more warm items more often. Again, just hand tight them down. Make sure when you put them in the canner, they're not all up on each other and crowded. You see me continuously looking above my head, as I just noticed the crazy cat has climbed to the top of the cabinets behind me. Bless her heart. She's working on getting down. going to run my oil around the top of my canner again. So that way when it's done, I can actually get the lid off, line it up, lock it down. Again, alternating for this canner till you get it tightened down. All right, now we're just going to let that one build up the vent, and we're going to let it vent for its 10 minutes. Then we're going to put our weight on. We're going to weight our time. We're doing pints with meat, so that's going to be 15 pounds pressure for me for 75 minutes. I've got some other things I need to do around here in the interim, pack up a couple orders, get my dough ready for my homemade ravioli. So I'm going to start working on that stuff, and I will see you guys when this is done. So I'm just packing up a couple of orders here while I'm waiting for the corned beef to finish in the canner. So got a couple items going out. This one was actually the little white flowers over here are the dish soaps themselves. Just kind of keep playing with it. The post office was brutal to me in December. I had to redo a couple orders because while I try to put the stuff in here as nicely as I possibly can, I'm quite convinced the post office decides to punt kick some things sometimes. Back that up a little bit. And so, unfortunately, some of them were destroyed, so I had to redo them. So I just keep changing my methods. Maybe one day they'll get it all together. In here. Now I hope that they don't bump around too much. Those are the little dish soaps. And then I always, anything now, because I did get some feedback, so anything now with the patchoulis or the stronger scents, I kind of wrap up in the plastic as they go out. Because we don't want everything smelling like patchouli. And those soaps seem to transfer. The patchouli ones kind of live in their own little vault. There. And then our little baggie goes in. And our sticker. And we'll pack up the rest of these. Hey guys, welcome back. For anybody concerned about the crazy cat, she made it down safely. She likes to get up here and travel to the tip top of my cabinets. We live on pretty much a dead-end street, so we always have new arrivals around here because people apparently think this is a great place to dump their animals. So currently we have quite a few cats. We rehome the ones that we can if they're young enough. The older ones kind of stay outside if they're used to being outside. So if anybody wants to know what I spend my soap money on, cats and dogs. We have 2 dogs that showed up this week, so we're trying to get them taken care of. So we get them fixed, we get them taken care of. But this one was from our last batch of kittens, and her name is Rivka, ironically. And if you know me from being the soap lady on the Prepared Homestead, you'll find that funny, as Travis's wife's name is Rivka. Yes, that is kind of why the cat's name's Rivka, but not the way you think. This one was supposed to be the one that was going to go to Rivka, but her daughter came over and fell in love with a different one, and who are we to break a little girl's heart? So after weeks of calling her Rivka, well, she just stayed Rivka. And so she's a little crazy, but we love her. And she's going to be here forever, ever, because she's just, well, she's rotten. So she apparently is now asleep. So we're going to hold her the rest of the time. I got my orders packed up. I have my dough chilling for later. As you can see, these all came out quite nicely. Put her down before she gets burned. So we're just going to sit here and let these set up. We'll watch. I can see some of them have already popped. We'll watch for the rest of them to pop. But like I said, this is super easy to have an easy lunch, easy breakfast, you know, if you want to make. I've actually taken and, you know, fried it up, like I said, fried it up in a pan, made breakfast burritos with it, thrown eggs with them to make kind of like an egg hash. I mean, easy way to get something good and healthy. And if you already like the corned beef hash that you get canned in the store, same concept here, but you just don't have all the preservatives and everything else. So this is one of our go-to favorites. We're going to let it sit, and then it will add to the shelf. There's actually a whole nother wall over here of fruit. So I try to keep my fruits separated except for the oranges because they're in high demand. So I try to keep those out where I can see how low we're getting on those, because the crowd does love the oranges around here. So yeah, so we'll let these set up. We'll give them about a 12-hour to 24-hour set to make sure they've sealed completely. I'll wipe them down in case any get siphoned. I see over here there's just a little grease on the top of this one, so I'll give it a wipe down so that way it's clean in my pantry. And these are going to be great for easy meals this summer when we're busy working in the garden and we come in and we're tired. We just heat up and go. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you for stopping by, and I hope you have a great afternoon.